when Gay pushed open the door. He still carried the faint, antiseptic smell from the hospital, mixed with the sweet fragrance of Lin Wan's favorite brand of baby lotion. He didn't even take off his suit jacket, directly walked to the center of the living room, his voice like it had frozen into a crack. Speaking toward the empty stairway, Gay said, "Shinja, come downstairs." There was no response, only the valuable floor clock in the living room, the second hand ticking away coldly, measuring the time. He frowned, out of patience, raised his volume, and shouted again, "Shinjingha, I know you're at home. Don't hide. Come out. Let's talk." Still no response. Gu's brows knitted into a knot. This woman used to stay carefully in every corner of the house. Whenever he returned, he could see her bowed head and compliant demeanor. Now she's learned to put on airs. Is it because she knows one gave birth and is throwing a tantrum? A hint of impatience flashed in his heart, along with a trace of resentment so subtle that even he hadn't noticed it just then. The butler Chin held a tea tray and walked over from the side hall with small steps, his face wearing the usual respectful expression, but his eyes, flickering a bit, didn't look at him, unbuttoning the top button of his shirt as he spoke coldly. Olin Go and calmed Madam down, immediately sat down the tea tray, rubbing his hands together at his sides, his voice a touch dry. "Sir, Madam, she's not at home. Not at home." Gay paused, finally directing his gaze to old Chen's face with a scrutinizing look. Where could she be at this time? Has she gone to the Shin family? Or is she once again dabbling around those public welfare organizations that don't amount to much? His tone was full of disdain to him. Shinja's so-called career was always a worthless trifle. Uncle Chin lowered his head further, his voice even softer, stammering, "No, not the lady. She didn't just step out for a moment. Sir, the lady has moved out for some time now." Moved out? Gay seemed to hear a joke and snorted. "She threw a tantrum and ran away from home." "Fine. Good for her. Call her. Tell her I don't have time to play this cat and mouse game with her. Tell her to come back immediately. I have something important to inform her." He walked to the liquor cabinet, poured himself about half a glass of whiskey. The amber liquid swayed in the glass, thinking about what he was going to say next. The irritation caused by Shinja's immaturity was replaced by a cool, justified detachment. Wan and the child were still at the confinement center waiting for him to give them a formal status. And he must get rid of Shinja, this stumbling block, as soon as possible. Grandpa Chin stood still, beads of fine sweat forming on his forehead. Gay waited for a moment, not hearing Grandpa Chin answer the phone. He turned around unhappily. "What are you still standing?" Therefore, Grandpa Chin seemed to have made a great decision. He suddenly lifted his head, the old face wrinkled as if all the wrinkles squeezed together, and he spoke very quickly. "Sir, Madam isn't throwing a tantrum. She really has moved out. On the third night, you accompanied Miss Lin to the confinement center. Madam took a call, and then she packed up and left. At that time, I wanted to inform you, but you ordered that Miss Lin needed absolute quiet during confinement, and under no circumstances should any family matters be disturbed." Gus clenched the wine glass a little tighter. Third night, that was almost a month ago. In this month, he had devoted himself wholly to Wan, watched their son grow day by day, his heart full of the joy of new fatherhood and his pity for Wan. And he had long since pushed Shinja to the back of his mind. He hadn't even thought to ask how she was. A threat of extremely subtle, peculiar feeling crawled up his heart. Shinja, a person so compliant, would actually move out without a sound. And she moved out almost a month ago, but he immediately pressed that feeling down, most likely knowing that Wan had given birth to a son, feeling his status insecure, protesting in this way or trying to attract his attention. He turned his face coldly, drained the wine from the cup in one gulp, the sharp liquid rolling down his throat. Gay said, "Fine, I understand. Since she wants to make a scene, let her make a scene to her heart's content. Contact her now, wherever she is, and tell her to be at the Civil Affairs Bureau entrance at 9:00 tomorrow morning on time to wait for me." He put down the wine glass, pulled a velvet box from inside his suit jacket, and casually tossed it onto the coffee table that could be seen clearly. The box popped open, revealing a diamond ring that refracted a cold light under the lamp. It was the ring he had half-heartedly bought for Shinjo when they married years ago. She had cherished it all along and wore it until she moved out, after which she took it off and placed it on the dresser. Now, this ring had become his token, ordering her to divorce. Gui's voice carried no warmth. Tell her to bring this ring with her. Juan and her child need to have their household registration. This can't be delayed any longer. Set the divorce certificate for tomorrow. I'll have the lawyer handle the compensation according to the agreement. Tell her not to play any tricks, not to waste my time. After speaking, he turned to go upstairs to take a bath, wanting to wash away the scent that the hospital had left on him. The thought that tomorrow he could completely resolve Shinja and give Wan and the child a proper name made his steps feel light, even a bit brisk. Sir, old Chen's voice suddenly rose, trembling with almost frightened urgency, stopping him in his tracks. Gay impatiently turned his head back. What now? Old Master Chen's face turned alarmingly pale. His lips trembled and his eyes dared not look at Gay, fixed on the pattern on the carpet as if he would drill a hole through it. He uttered the words word by word as if he had exhausted all his strength to squeeze them out from the throat. President Ge, the wife didn't move out by herself. That night, a car came. A few people got out, helped the wife move the luggage. The wife left with a man. Snap! The empty wine glass in Gui's hand that was about to be put back on the liquor cabinet slipped away, smashed onto the marble floor, and shattered to pieces in an instant. The crisp sound exploded in the overly quiet living room. Unusually harsh, he suddenly swung around, fixedly staring at Uncle Chin, his eyes as sharp as a knife. What did you say? A man? What man? Uncle Chen's legs went weak under his gaze, nearly unable to stand, his voice trembling badly. It's a man who looks very imposing. The car he drives is very expensive, more than ours. His subordinates also call him Mr. Lu. The wife calls him Qinghao. Mr. Lu Qinho. A buzzing sound rang through Gui's head, and everything went blank. Shinja's social circle was so simple as to be dull he could count them with his eyes closed. Who knew who among them with the surname Lu was the general and call him so intimately? A sinking boat? No, impossible. It must be Uncle Chen's old eyes growing dim. Or Shinja finding an actor from who knows where who purposely tires him out. Yes, it must be like that. That submissive woman who can't live without him after leaving him. How could she have any other man still dares to go with him? Gui's chest rose and fell violently. He forcibly suppressed the inexplicable surge of demonic fire that rose up, gritting his teeth, and his voice squeezed through his teeth. And then, where did they go? Where is Shinja? Uncle Chin almost cried. He closed his eyes and threw out the last bombshell of a sentence. I secretly overheard that. President Lu told his wife that the private plane has been arranged directly flying abroad. They went to the airport that night. The wife had already been taken abroad by her new husband. My new husband has taken him abroad. Those few words hit like thunderbolts pulled from ice shards, coming without warning and ruthlessly striking Gay on the crown of his head. He stiffened in place, the usual coldness, disdain, and sense of control freezing in an instant, then breaking apart piece by piece. Blood seemed to surge backward at this moment, roaring in his ears, and his vision even darkened for a moment. A bolt from the blue. She opened her mouth, but could not utter a sound. Chinbo's words repeatedly echoed in her mind. New husband, take away abroad, already a month ago, while he was with Linu Wanwan, basking in the joy of having a child and planning how to lead her and their child and triumph into the house and how to get rid of Shinja. His wife, who was as gentle as a rabbit, had already been taken away by another man under the name of new husband, went abroad, completely unbeknownst to him. How is this possible? How dare Shinja? Where did that sunk boat come from again? An unprecedented mix of shock, full anger, and a sharp, prickling panic that even he didn't want to admit seized his heart, making it almost impossible to breathe. The living room was deathly silent, only the shards of glass on the floor reflecting a cold light, and his suddenly heavy breathing. In the next moment, Gay stomped over and kicked the antique side table aside. The vase and ornaments on top claimed and shattered all over the floor. His eyes were bloodshot like a thoroughly enraged beast that has lost its target as he hissed at the terrified Chinbo. Investigate. I want results now. Use all our connections. Turn the whole world upside down to find Shinjo for me. And that name Blue. I want to know where they are. Immediately. Right now. His roar echoed through the deserted villa. No longer the cold composure from before. Only a scene of frantic disarray. And on the coffee table, that lone diamond ring, still flashed with a cold, mocking shine. Goose stood before the enormous floor, toe-ceiling window in the study, looking out at the city night view he once took pride in, bright with lights. But now, to his eyes, it appeared as a twisted, wavering glare. He held in his hands a newly delivered preliminary investigation report, the edges of the paper crumpled by his grip, his fingertips cold. The cold, stinging words on the report pierced his eyes like needles as twinging Ha on the night of the 15th of last month at 97 p.m. Left the Gu residence with only a simple bag. The support vehicle was a black Maybach. The license plate traced to an offshore company abroad at 11:20 p.m. that night. The vehicle entered the VIP channel of the international airport. After retrieving non-public records, it was confirmed that at 11:50 p.m. that night, Twin Jinga boarded a Gulfstream G650 private jet registered in the Cayman Islands and departed destination Zurich, Switzerland. The accompanying person was identified as an Asian male with highly encrypted identity information, commonly using the alias La Chenho. Private jet, Switzerland, highly encrypted. Every single word is wildly subverting Gui's understanding of Shinja. The woman, who always lowers her head in front of him, dresses plainly, and hesitates for a long time, even to buy a decent bag, can unexpectedly get on a private jet and fly directly to Switzerland. That Shinja, who has hardly traveled abroad. Lu Chinho Gay spits out the name from between his teeth, his eyes dark and terrifying. Who is he anyway? By what right? He suddenly slams the report onto an expensive mahogany desk and roars. Investigate. Keep digging. What exactly is the backing of that Lu surname and Xinjing has exact location in Switzerland? What she's been doing this past month? I wanted detailed to every minute and second. The assistant responds tremblingly on the other end of the phone. Hanging up the phone, the study was dead silent. Goose, feeling irritated, loosened his tie, yet that suffocating sensation seemed to seep from his heart, lingering and inescapable. He walked to the liquor cabinet, about to pour a drink, but his hand halted in midair. Strangely, some images he had forgotten in corners or had never paid attention to suddenly welled up, uncontrollably. That was a rainy night 3 years ago. He and Shinja had just celebrated their first wedding anniversary. Lin Wanwang was studying abroad with no news. He had drunk too much at the social occasion and was driven home by the driver. It was Shinja who, shuffling in slippers, ran out and struggled to support him. He stained her newly changed home attire with his vomit. She simply cleaned the floor and him quietly, then went to the kitchen to brew a wake-up soup for him. He knocked the soup bowl over, and the scalding soup splashed onto the back of her hand, turning it red in an instant. But he only frowned, saying disdainfully, "You're so clumsy. You can't even hold a bowl properly." What expression did Shinja have at that moment? Goose tried to recall, but he only remembered her quickly pulling the back of her hand behind her, lowering her head, and whispering, "Sorry, I'll go get another bowl." He didn't say another word, dropping onto the sofa and falling. In 2 days, it was only later that he learned her back of the hand had blistered from the burn and took several days to heal. Yet, she didn't say a word about it. There was one more time. It was his mother's birthday. Lin Wanwan suddenly called, crying that she had fallen ill in a foreign country. He immediately left, who was for his mother, drove to the airport, found the fastest flight, flew for more than 10 hours to comfort his Wan. When he returned a week later, His mother ripped into him the birthday banquet in a mess. He naturally vented his anger on, "Can't you be more clever? Mom's birthday is such a big deal, and you, as a daughter-in-law, can't even arrange it properly," was inserting a new flower at that moment. Upon hearing it, the scissors in her hand went crack and cut off a stalk of a lily that was blooming perfectly. She faced away from him, her shoulders trembling slightly. Then she replied in a low voice for a long time, "It's my fault." Her back view thin and silent. At that time he felt that even her grievance seemed so bland, lifeless, boring, lifeless. Gay muttered these few adjectives he had once been certain about while somewhere in his heart a scissors, like cut from that memory, lightly sliced, stirring a sharp, unfamiliar sting. If she really is that boring, that mysterious Lucha with the obscure identity, has he gone blind? He jerked his head up, trying to disperse these untimely images. Must be pretending the meekness and subservience she showed before him for the past 3 years might all be a disguise just to numb him and climb to a higher branch, this calculating woman at this moment. The phone he left on the desk rang sharply. It was Lin Wanwan. Gay took a deep breath, forcibly suppressing the turbulent emotions, picked up the phone, and spoke with a deliberately soft voice. "Hello, Wanwan. Why haven't you slept yet? Is baby causing you trouble?" On the other end of the line, Lin Wanwan's voice carried the fragility specific to someone just after giving birth, along with a trace of urgency and grievance that was hard to notice. "Z, I can't sleep. I'm anxious. Have you seen Shenxing? Has she agreed to divorce our baby? We can't keep it headless and nameless forever. If it had been before." Hearing Lin Wan speak with a sobbing tone like this, Gay would have felt heartache to the point of pain and would have wanted to lift the whole world to her feet immediately. But at this moment, the image of Shinjin shredded knuckles and her head lowered, saying, "I'm sorry," and the trembling shoulders when she cut off the branch flashed before his eyes. A strange irritability surged in his chest. Guza's tone unconsciously softened a bit. We're discussing this. There are some procedural issues that need time to handle. You should rest and recuperate. Don't worry about these things. It's bad for your health." Lin Wan seemed to sense something unusual in his tone, paused, and became more aggrieved. "Zay, do you think I'm annoying you? I know, after giving birth, my figure hasn't recovered, isn't like before. If you still have her in your heart, I can take the baby and leave. I won't let you be put in a difficult position." As she spoke, she began to sob softly. If it were usual, Gay would have pacified her with warm words long ago. But today that sobbing sound hit his ears and his temples throbbed. Shinj has seemed to have never cried like this before, at least never cried in front of him like this. He rubbed his brow, slashed temples, and his voice carried fatigue. "Wanwan, don't daydream. I said I would handle it well, and I will. You rest first. I still have things to deal with on my end." Before Lin Wan could say anything else, he hung up the phone in a hurry. The study fell quiet once more, but Gwei's heart could no longer settle. He, by some whim, opened an album in his phone that he had almost never opened. The cloud automatic backup containing some scattered photos. The finger he swiped with suddenly paused. It was a very blurry photo, like a corner of a surveillance screenshot. The background showed the home dining room. Shinjo was tying an apron, sitting alone in a corner of the huge dining table, a bowl in front of her that seemed long cooled. She lowered her head, holding chopsticks, but hadn't moved for a long time. Outside the window were the brilliant fireworks of New Year's Eve, reflecting on her profile, though the light and shadow were lively. They made the cheek on her side look inexplicably lonely and pale. The photo was taken on New Year's Eve 3 years ago. Gay remembered that day. Lin Wan was in a bad mood on the phone. He flew to Paris to comfort her and spent the new year with her. He completely forgot that there was someone else at home at that time. He hadn't even called her once. Gay stared at the photo, his fingers unconsciously clenched. Even the phone screen darkened. Under his press, the unfamiliar pain in his heart struck again, this time clearer and more intense. Shinjing Ha, he whispered the name, for the first time, feeling that these 3 characters tasted bitter in his mouth. At this moment, the study door was gently knocked. "Come in." Gay swiftly locked his phone and restored his cold, stern expression. The assistant pushed the door open, looking somewhat strange, and carefully placed a tablet in front of him. "President Ge, we obtained through some special channels some scattered information about Miss Shin. No Mrs. Shin in Switzerland. Mainly footage from public appearances where she was photographed." Gay grabbed the tablet in one go. The screen lights up with a photo that is clearly taken by a paparazzo from a distance and is somewhat blurry. The background shows the entrance of a top-tier jewelry shop by Lake Zurich. In the center of the photo, a woman wearing a perfectly tailored ivory white long dress and a wide-brimmed hat is tilting her head slightly to look at the man beside her. Even though the pixels are not high, Gay can recognize at a glance that it is Shinja, but she was completely different from the gray, downcast Shinja in his memory. In the photo, she stood tall with a long neck and a clearly defined, beautiful silhouette of her profile. In the sunlight, her skin looked so fair it almost glowed. The hat added a touch of mystery and nobility to her, and her slightly raised chin carried a relaxed yet self-assured radiance that Goose had never seen before. Next to her, the man in a tailored suit, tall and upright, leans slightly forward, listening intently to her words. His hand rests gently around her waist in an absolutely protective and possessive manner, even as just a shadowy silhouette. One can feel his imposing aura and his clear regard for the woman beside him. This man is Le Chenho. The timestamp under the photo shows 10 days ago. In other words, while he was taking care of Lin Wanwan and the child, planning the future with all his heart, Shinjo was being so meticulously cared for by another man, leisurely selecting jewelry in one of the most bustling cities in the world. Bang! Gu's other hand hammered down on the desk. The solid wood desk made a dull, heavy thud, and the back of his hand instantly turned red. But he didn't feel any pain. Her eyes instantly filled with bloodshot veins as she stared fixedly at the strange, glaring smile on Chin, Jing Ha's face in the photo, and at the hand Lu Chenho had placed on her waist. So she wasn't unable to smile nor lacking in brightness. It's just that her smile and brightness were never because of him. Gay, in 3 years of marriage, all he gave was indifference, neglect, and legitimate demands, and that La Chenha, who appeared out of nowhere, could in a short time transform her, allowing her to blossom into such a dazzling appearance. He deliberately emphasized the 3 characters, Mrs. Gu, as if this could erase the impact of the photo and push the radiant woman back into the gray imprint that belonged to him. The air in Zurich carried a clean, coolly distant scent, completely different from London's thick, damp stuffiness. I pulled my small suitcase, and my steps instinctively felt lighter. Lu Chenho walked beside me, not letting his assistant or bodyguard push the cart. He held a sleek carry-on in his hand, his other hand naturally resting on the handle of my suitcase, occasionally whispering to me, "Are you tired? Or we'll rest once we get on the plane." This kind of small everyday care has felt almost luxurious to imagine over the past 3 years. The boarding announcement blared, indicating that passengers in our flights, first class, could board first. Lu Chenjo turned his head to look at me, a gentle smile in his eyes. "Let's go home. Go home." The phrase made my heart flutter softly. Then warmth wrapped around me. Yes, returning to our home in London. We had just reached the vicinity of the VIP passage entrance and hadn't presented our boarding passes yet when a voice saturated with a storm but familiar to the marrow stabbed from the rear side like a venom-tipped ice spike piercing hard. Xinjing, my spine instantly stiffened and a chill seemed to run through my blood even though I was mentally prepared. Knowing Gay would never let this go easily, hearing that voice echoing in a foreign country induced a physiological, suffocating sense of oppression. The hand that the Latino had resting on the immediately lowered and firmly grasped mine. His palm was broad and warm, his strength steady, instantly banishing the chill at my fingertips. He paused for a moment, pulling me closer to his side, then slowly turned around. I also turned a few steps away. Gay stood there. He should have flown in overnight. The suit on him was creased, dark circles beneath his eyes and stubble on his chin. But all this disarray was nothing compared to what his eyes were saying at this moment, staring fixedly at me, filled with shock, rage, jealousy, and a near obsessive certainty that I belonged to him. A crimson color, his gaze, first, ruthlessly roved over the hand I had been held by Lu Chenha, then moved to my face as if he were truly sizing me up for the first time. I dressed very simply today, a pale pink knitted dress, a long coat in the same color over it, my hair loosely tied up, and only light makeup on my face. But I know this is vastly different from the way I shrink away and try not to attract attention when I'm by his side. It was Lu Chenho who gradually pulled me out of my shell and told me, "Jinga, you deserve all beauty." Guest's pupils dilated sharply for a moment, and inside there was not only anger, but also a fleeting, extremely rapid sense of strangers that even he hadn't noticed. How could the pale one version in his memory be the same as the woman before him, whose complexion was bright and eyes calm, even distant, but his distraction lasted only an instant. Rage quickly swallowed other emotions. Guz stepped forward violently, completely ignoring Lu Chenho, staring at me, his voice from trying to suppress it. "Xinjing ha, come back with me." The tone of command exactly like the past 3 years, as if I were just a personal item of his that was accidentally left out, able to be picked up at any moment. I said nothing, only stared at him quietly. It's strange. The eyes that once frightened me to the point of not daring to meet are now only ridiculous and tired. I can even clearly see the corner of his mouth twitching slightly from excitement. Lu Chenho gently pinched my hand, stepped forward half a step, and completely sheltered me behind him. He is a bit taller than Gay, and the air of calm that surrounded him from long habit of being in power has at this moment faded into an invisible pressure. Directly facing Guy's violence, Lu Chenjo spoke, not raising his voice, but every word was clear with a cold edge. "Mr. Gu, please show some restraint. You have frightened my wife." Madame Gu's seemed burned by those two characters, turning his gaze sharply toward Lu Chenha, his eyes menacingly grim. "She is my legal wife. What are you anyway? Who dares call her madam?" Lu Chenho, "Right. I don't care what kind of deity you are. Shinja is mine. You let go immediately, or I will make sure you can't survive at home or abroad." He spoke fierce words attempting to pressure people with past power, but he did not know what kind of existence he was facing. Lucho heard this and barely smiled, a smile that did not reach his eyes, instead adding a touch of coldness. He didn't even bother to say more, just only slightly turned his head and gave a brief instruction in English to the two tall men who had quietly drawn near, wearing airport security uniforms, but with obviously different temperaments. The two men immediately stepped forward, one on the left and one on the right, politely yet irresistibly blocking between Guz and us. When had Gay ever been treated like this, especially in front of his woman? He snapped with rage, trying to push past those blocking him. "Get out of the way. Do you know who I am? I'm Gay Shinja. You let these outsiders treat me like this. Come here to me." He tried to bypass security and reach out to pull me closer. I had said nothing until now, when a small portion of my body timidly leaned out from behind Lu Chenho, watching Guzi's face, twisted by anger and urgency around the VIP airport corridor. A few travelers had turned their heads. My voice was calm, not agitated, not afraid, not even seething with hate, only a thorough detachment and proclamation. "Gay, do you need me to remind you while you were accompanying Lin Wan to lie in confinement after birth and planning how to conceive my place to her? I already filed for divorce unilaterally. The lawyer's letter should have reached your company long ago. As for your unilateral refusal and procrastination, they do not affect the fact that our marriage has already ethically dissolved. Now, standing by my side as my husband, Mr. Lu Chenho in the eyes of the law, there may still be some formalities left, but in my heart, we have been finished long ago. Please do not harass me or my family again." To Clear's family, Gay seemed to hear a great joke, his red eyes glaring at me. "Shinja, you want 2 Clears with me. 3 years. I've raised you for 3 years. Now you're dressed so fashionably flying on private jets. Or all of that funded by the money of my goo family for this little white face? His words grew more and more vulgar. Lu Chun hazmat sank. I no longer retreat, stepping out fully from behind Le Chenho and standing shoulder to shoulder with him. I raised my head, meeting Guzi's vicious gaze, and suddenly smiled softly. Shinjin has said, Guz, you're taking care of me. For these 3 years, I've lived in your house eating and using things is true, but I am also your family's free 24-hour on-call nanny, your mother's punching bag whenever she wants, your tool to vent after drinking. Have you given me even a single cent of salary? Do you remember my birthday? Do you know what I am allergic to? I hesitated for a moment, watching the suddenly stiffened expression on his face, and continued with a clear voice so that everyone around with perk ears could hear. Also, you say I used your money. Ridiculous. I never touched a penny from the card you gave me at our wedding. I will return it to you exactly as it is in the divorce agreement. As for everything I have now, I turned my head to glance at Luchenho beside me, who remained as steady as a mountain, and a surge of limitless courage and warmth rose in my heart. I turned back and spoke to Gay sentence by sentence. All of it is from Chinho. What he gives I take with a clear conscience, because with him I am not a nanny, not a punching bag, and certainly not anyone's substitute. I am Shinjing Ha, his legally wedded and cherished wife. Gay was blocked by my words, his face turning pale, his chest heaving violently, his finger pointing at me, trembling. He has probably never heard me say so much at once in his life, and in such a calm tone, even with pity and mockery. The faint discussions and gazes around stabbed at his last shred of pride like needles. He completely lost his mind and suddenly wanted to rush over, but was firmly restrained by the 2 security personnel. At this moment, Lucchino finally spoke again. His gaze swept over Goose, who was still struggling despite being restrained, as if scanning a piece of irrelevant trash. He said to the security, This gentleman is emotionally out of control and may pose a danger to others. Please ensure he stays away from me and my wife's boarding area. If he exhibits further extreme behavior, notify the local police immediately. After speaking, he no longer looked at Goose, pulled me by the shoulders, and with gentleness yet firmness, led me to turn around and walk toward the VIP corridor. Shinja, don't go. You come back here. I won't let you go. Gay roared hilariously from behind, his voice filled with unwillingness, fury, and a hint of fear and despair that even he himself was reluctant to admit. Do you think he can protect you for life? You wait for me. I won't let you go. Xingjinga. His roar echoed through the vast, empty heights ceiling space of the airport, sounding so powerless and ridiculous. I did not look back. Step by step, I walked into the passage, leaving behind that man who was hysterical, together with my unbearable 3 years. Completely behind me, the door of the passage slowly closed, isolating all noise. The sinking boat halted in its tracks, and he cooped my face with both hands, his fingertips brushing away a tear that had slipped down at some unknown moment. His gaze was deep and focused, filled with tenderness and overwhelming resolve. Lu Chenho said, Jingha, it's all over now. From now on, I'll support your sky. I nodded vigorously, leaning into his embrace. This time, the tears were hot, both forbidding farewell and for new beginnings. Outside the passage, Goose, who was invited to the side by airport security, stood there listlessly as we disappeared from sight, his face pale and lifeless in those scarlet eyes. Only the madness after the complete crushing of his dignity remained, along with a boundless void. A few dozen hours flying back to the motherland from Zurich. For Gay, every minute felt like torture in hell. The spacious first-class seats now felt like needles, and distant gentle inquiries from the flight attendants sounded like noise. Replaying in his mind over and over were Shinja's eyes, calm to the point of indifference, Lu Chenho's protective and possessive posture when he carried her away, and himself looking like a clown being restrained by security at the airport, utterly embarrassed. What stuck in his throat even more were the words Shin Jin has spoke. Free nanny, venting outlet, tool, each word like a rusted blunt knife, tugging back and forth at his heart. So in her eyes, those 3 years were truly so unbearable. He had clearly given her the status of Mrs. Gu, provided her with a comfortable life. What more could she want? But another voice in his heart screamed. If it was truly so unbearable, why did Lu Chenzhou treat her as a treasure? Why, after leaving him, did she gleam like a dusted pearl blooming with such dazzling light? Jealousy and a kind of rage that felt completely negated and trampled burned fiercely in his chest, nearly swallowing him whole. But deep in this blaze, a cold suspicion crept out like a venomous snake. Xinjin has changed. Did it really come only because she met Lu Chenhe, or did she already have such a side all along, only deliberately suppressed while she was with him? Or was he just blind, never truly seeing her? No, impossible. Gay threw back a shot of strong liquor, trying to suppress the thought that made him even more irritable. It must be that Lu Chenhe used some means to beguile her. It must be the plane touched down, and the city's damp, chilly air rushed at him. Yet it couldn't wake him in the slightest. Dragging a tired and volatile body, he didn't go home, nor did he go to the company. Instead, as if driven by an unseen force, he drove to the maternity center where Lin Wanwan and the child were temporarily staying. Stopping downstairs, he didn't go up immediately. Sitting in the car, he watched the warmly decorated building, and for the first time felt a little lost. He had once thought this was the beginning of happiness, the harbor for the woman he loved and his son. But now it resembled a sarcastic testament. He pulled out his phone, and the latest message from the assistant appeared on the screen. Aside from still failing to uncover the core details about Lu Chenhe, one piece of information caught his attention. Mr. Gu, prior instruction. I rechecked Miss Lin's perinatal records. We found several blood type report forms in the hospital archives with slight inconsistencies between the recording time and the inspection time. Arrangements have been made for further verification. Also, during pregnancy, Miss Lin repeatedly used the auxiliary card you provided for large expenditures. Some merchant categories, such as high-end men's clothing and luxury watches, do not align with the needs of pregnant women. The spending locations are mostly in the newly developed eastern district of the city, which diverges from Miss Lin's usual residence and activity range. Blood type report doubts expenses not matching the needs of the pregnant woman. Qingdong New District. Gui's brows quivered hard. Some details he had overlooked suddenly surged up. In the early stages of Lin Wan's pregnancy, her reactions were especially strong, and she always clung to him. But in the middle of pregnancy, for about 2 or 3 months, she was unusually compliant, saying she didn't want to disturb his work, often claiming she had arranged to go out with friends for a little outing or to visit her mother for a while. At that time, he even thought she was considerate. Also, once he rushed to Chandong to meet a client, and from a distance, he seemed to glimpse the back of someone who looked a lot like Lin Wanwan walking arm in arm with a man into a boutique hotel. His phone rang, and when he looked up, the person had vanished. He didn't think much of it at the time, only felt he had missing. Now, thinking back, a chill ran up his spine violently. He suddenly pushed open the car door and strode into the maternity center in the Lin. Wan was half reclining on the bed, teasing her son in the baby cot, a soft smile on her face. Seeing him come in, her eyes brightened and she immediately changed to an expression of grievance and dependence. Say, you're back. Why did you go for so long? Was everything handled smoothly? What about Xinjia? Did she sign? She spoke and was about to get off the bed to greet him. Gay stood there motionless, his sharp gaze sweeping over her face, trying to detect any trace of guilt. His silence and icy scrutiny made Lin Wanwan's smile stiffen. Zay, what's wrong with you? Your face looks so ugly. Did that be Xinjia? Pull another trick again. Lin Wanwan stepped forward, trying to take his hand, her voice choked with sobs. Don't worry, no matter what she does, the baby and I will always stay with you. If it were before, Gay would have already held her in his arms and comforted her in a gentle voice. But now hearing her calling her AB****, and talking about tricks and comparing it to Shinja's. He feels an indescribable disgust. He dodged her hand and walked to the baby crib, looking at the sleeping infant inside. The child is small with brows and eyes. He looked at him more carefully than ever, and suddenly he realized that perhaps he doesn't look much like himself. This thought made his heart suddenly contract. Is the baby behaving today? He asked hoarsely. Linu Wanwan noticed his attitude wasn't right and felt even more uneasy. She moved closer to him and spoke softly. So well behaved, just a bit prone to crying. The nurse said, "It might be because of you. You must have been mischievous when you were a child." 2. Gay didn't reply, then suddenly asked, "Wan, that time you were pregnant, after we got together, I remember you took emergency contraception." Lin Wan's face palled for a moment, then quickly recovered. She pouted playfully and punched him lightly. "Oh, why are you bringing this up? Olive, that medicine, it might have failed. Otherwise, how could we have our little son? That shows even heaven wants us to be together." Her reasoning sounded plausible, but in that instant, her panic did not escape Guzi's extremely eyes. Right at that moment, his phone buzzed. He walked to the window, turning his back to Lin Wanwan. An enlarged process surveillance screenshot was sent by his assistant. Although blurry, it was identifiable as the entrance of the boutique hotel in the east of the city. Lin Wanwan lay beside a tall man, affectionately nestled in his arms, and the time clearly corresponded to the period when she claimed she was going back to her mother's house. And the man's silhouette, Gui's pupils constricted. He suddenly turned around, his gaze so cold it was frightening, fixated on Lin Wan. Lin Wanwan, feeling his stare, broke into a brittle smile. "Zay, what's wrong with you? Don't look at me like that. I'm scared." Gay stepped closer, his voice unnervingly low. "Lin Wan, be honest with me. Is the child really mine?" What did you say?" Lin Wan was struck by thunder, her eyes wide in disbelief, tears instantly welling up. "Gay, how can you ask me this for you? I endured so much grievance without status, suffered so much, finally gave birth to our child. And you still doubt me. Did Shinja tell you something? That be asterisk starred if she can't have you. She wants to ruin us." She cried like a pear blossom rain as usual. Zay's heart would have softened, but now looking at her familiar, crying routine, he only felt it was hypocritical and disgusting. "Is it mine?" "Well, no, by testing," Gay said coldly, pulling out his phone to arrange a paternity test. "No." Lin Wan pounced fiercely, trying to grab his phone, her voice sharp. "Gay, you can't insult me like this. You can't." Her fierce opposition was more like a heavy hammer, smashing the last glimmer of love Gay had in his heart. The two were pulling at each other, and the door to the room was suddenly pushed open. Guest's mother, the old madam of the Gu family, entered with a big bag and a small bag of supplements. All smiles. "Oh my, is my dear grandson behaving today? Grandma has brought you so many." "Zerwan, what are you two doing?" Gu's mother was stunned to see the two struggling in the room. Lin Wanwan, as if seeing a lifeline, sprang to Gay's mother's feet and cried with a heart-wrenching cry. Auntie, you must stand up for me." "Z." He listened to Shinja's instigation and suspects the baby isn't his. He wants to take the baby to do that paternity test thing. "Isn't that taking my life? The baby is so small. How can it endure that kind of torture?" "Boo-hoo." Mother Goose's face sank as she listened. She had always been extremely fond of Lin Wanwan, who was sweet-talking and capable of pleasing people, and she looked down on who was quiet and reserved now that her grandson had been born. Her son actually caused such a scene. Mother Gu gave Gay a displeased look. "Zir, what are you fooling around for? Wan has given you a son. She is a great contributor to the Gu family. If you don't treat her well, you start doubting her. Has that troublemaker caused trouble again? I told you long ago she isn't a steady person." Hearing his mother's unprovoked accusations, the wicked fire in Gui's heart could no longer be suppressed. He pointed at Lin Wanwan, who was crying and trembling, and roared at his mother. "Mom, do you know what you're saying? She used my card during pregnancy to buy clothes and watches for another man. She was photographed in a hotel hugging another man. Is this child even mine? What? Mother Gu was struck by lightning. The supplement in her hand spilled everywhere. She suddenly lowered her head and looked at Lin Wanwan kneeling on the ground. Her eyes changed from shock to rage and disgust. Wanwan's ear. What you said, is it true? I didn't, Aunt. I was wronged. It was Shinja who set me up. Linu Wanwan denied vehemently. Framed. Gay sneers. Holding up the surveillance screenshot from his phone in front of the two of them. Take a look yourself. What is this? Mother Goose squinted her eyes and leaned in for a closer look. Although blurry, she was sure her son would not misidentify anyone. The intimate pose of Lin Wanwan and that man in the picture slapped her face like a resounding slap. She had always thought Lin Wanwan had a little scheming, but her son treated her with genuine sincerity. And she never expected thinking about how recently I've been bragging about my grandson all over. Thinking about what I did to force Shinja out to make way for Lin Wanwan if the grandson isn't a member of the Gu family. Mother Goose's eyes went black, almost fainted. You shameless little Mrs. Gu reacted, and all her past favoritism instantly turned into the most vicious insults. She trembled with rage, pointing at Lin Wan's nose and cursing. I must have been blind. I thought you were decent. I didn't expect you to be even cheaper than that Dolger Shinja, taking my Gu family's money to support a man outside marriage. And you expect the Gu family to raise your illegitimate child. Dream on. No, Aunt. Let me explain. Linu Wanwan still tried to struggle. Gay watched the chaotic, grim scene before him, the crying Lin Wanwan and the furious mother. And he recalled Shinja's calm and resolute silhouette at the airport and Lu Chinho's protective posture and unprecedented absurdity and exhaustion, overwhelming him like a flood. His painstakingly maintained true love might actually be a complete and total scam. He discards a marriage he once treated as worthless, yet others regarded as precious. Goose has seemingly become a huge joke, an early autumn drizzle in London, chilly in the air, but insulated from the bright studio lights and the warm texture of fabrics. I sit at a wide workbench, my fingertips brushing the last piece of pale gold leaf that needs to be hand-stitched. This is an evening gown, my design about to appear at the country's top charity gala, the exclusive custom piece at the final auction. And it is Shinhee designing under the independent label Shin, making her first formal appearance in the country's top circles. Lu Chinhao pushed the door open and came in holding a cup of warm honey water in his hand. He quietly set it down by my side without interrupting me, just standing a few steps behind me, his gaze fixed on the gradually taking shape work beneath my hands. And in his eyes there was unhidden admiration and pride. Look here. I didn't look up. My finger pointed at the embedded in the waistline. Isn't it too flashy? What I want to express is the moonlight lake, gentle but powerful, not pure dazzling brightness. Lu Chenho approached, bending down to take a careful look. His warm breath brushed my ear, bringing a studied strength. Lu Chenho said, "Perfect. Jinga, your feelings have always been right. It's beautiful, just like you." He paused, his voice softer. "Are you nervous? You're flying back tomorrow." I paused the needle, looked up, and met his deep, inclusive eyes. Nervous, perhaps a little, but more. There was a calm after the dust settled and a hint of anticipation as I was about to personally put a full stop to the past. I shake my head in his hand. With you here, I'm not afraid. I just want to go and see in my own way. See that world that once suffocated me, now in my eyes what is left. Lu Chenjo takes my hand from behind his strength firm. I'll go with you. Whatever you want to see. We'll see. Whoever you want to let see. We'll let them see. The charity banquet is held in the banquet hall of the century-old hotel in New City, the most prestigious. The crystal chandeliers light the hall as bright as daylight with fragrances of perfume and elegant silhouettes. Cups clinking, political and business elites, literary giants, science of prominent families gather in one place. The air is filled with a unique mix of money, power, and refined art. The time I arrived with Lu Chenho was neither early nor late. I clung to his arm and walked slowly into the venue. What I wore was not the auction piece. but another dress I designed myself. A smoky gray-blue silk gown with an extremely simple silhouette. No superfluous decorations. Only as I walked the hem flow with a water-like luster, as if wearing a quiet night sky. My hair was loosely pulled up, and two small teardrop-shaped diamonds hung by my ears. A gift from Lechenho. He said they resembled my tears, but hoped I would shed tears only for joy in the future. We did not deliberately flaunt ourselves, but Lechenjo's status was right there, and once he appeared, he naturally drew countless gazes. Those gazes, when they touched me by his side, carried surprise, inquiry, curiosity, scrutiny, all sorts of emotions in abundance. Mr. Liu, Mrs. Liu, welcome. Welcome. The host of the banquet, an elderly gentleman venerable in the business world, personally came forward to greet them, warmly shook hands with Liu Chenha, then looked at me with a sincere smile. This is designer Shin, right? We've heard of you for a long time. I didn't expect Mrs. Liu to be so young and accomplished. The design planned for Moonlight Lake impressed our judging panel beyond measure. Tonight's definitely the showstopper color. I smiled and nodded, replying politely, "You flatter me. Old Chin, it's my honor to participate in such a grand event." During the small talk, many people came over to chat with Lechenho. His attitude was calm yet distant. Only when others introduced me did he subtly turn his body, gently steering me into the center of the conversation in his words and gestures. The stance of respect and deference was clearly evident. It didn't take long for the circle to realize that this mysterious Mr. Liu held his designer wife in the palm of his hand, protecting her tenderly. I could feel the gazes lingering on me gradually shift from probing to recognition, even a hint of envy. This kind of respect that purely stemmed from my personal identity, and Liu Chenjo's endorsement was worlds apart from the past 3 years with the Gu family and around Gu's, where I was treated in a way that depended on the title of Mrs. Gu, full of scrutiny and contempt. At that moment, a slight commotion came from the entrance of the banquet hall. I held the champagne flute with my fingers, and they paused almost imperceptibly before returning to their natural state. Without turning around, I could also feel the scorching gaze that suddenly shot over, as if it could burn 2 holes in my back. Lechenko's hand gently pressed at my waist in a comforting manner. I looked up and offered him a faint smile that said, "I'm fine." Guys came. By his side was not Lin Wan, but a popular female star under his company, evidently a mammy to hold the scene. He looked more exhausted than in Zurich, and even in a hot couture suit, that inner collapse and malice could not be concealed. His gaze pierced through the crowd and locked onto me, containing shock, greed, disbelief, and a thick, inerasable jealousy. He probably never dreamed that in a top-tier event where he has to push his way in and is constantly thinking about expanding his network, he would see me so radiant, effortlessly navigating the core circle. He almost instinctively started walking toward me, but as soon as he took a step, he was blocked by 2 familiar, or perhaps previously needing to curry favor with him bosses who exchanged greetings. The 2 turned their backs to me, but I could see the obvious distraction and impatience on Gui's face, and his gaze kept drifting toward me. I cast a faint glance back as if he were just an inconsequential stranger and continued to whisper with a renowned gallery owner beside me about the possibilities of using contemporary art fabrics. The gallery owner was very appreciative of my insights, nodding repeatedly. The auction begins. One donated item after another is presented and bidding rises and falls. The atmosphere grows increasingly lively. My work, Moonlight Lake Light, is being grandly unveiled as the closing item. When the model walked onto the stage in a gown that fused silk, tulle, and exquisite hand embroidery as if moonlight scattered on the lake with fragments of silver and flowing gold, the audience erupted in a wave of soft admiration. The auctioneer passionately introduced the design concept and the designer Shin. Of course, my real name and pass were concealed, announcing the start of the bidding. The opening price was not low, but the bidders were enthusiastic. The price rose step by step, quickly reaching a number that left many gasping. Goose sat not far away, his face growing paler. He looked at my highly sought after peace at the radiant model on stage. What would that gown look like on me? And then at my calm, gentle smile and profile, his eyes complex and distorted. He was probably thinking that the woman who once had to bow to him for even a decent dress to buy now had her work contested by these people whose eyes were above the rest, just as the bidding reached a fever pitch with only 2 or 3 bidders left in a tug-of-war. Lu Chenjo, who had been quietly sitting beside me, suddenly raised the number paddle gracefully. The auctioneer's eyes lit up. Excellent. Mr. Lu, please bid 12 million. Is there any higher bid? This price far exceeded expectations. The hall fell into a momentary silence. Lu Chenhao, composed and calm, turned his head and gave me a gentle smile. His voice was soft, yet clear enough for those in the front rows to hear. Jinga's first domestic lot is worth 1 sentence. Both a confession and an undeniable support. In the end, the hammer fell. Moonlight Lake Light was purchased by Le Chenho for 12 million taels. The whole hall rose in enthusiastic applause, and eyes focused on us, filled with blessings and envy. I was somewhat surprised, but more so a surge of warmth. I knew he was not only for the work, but also in front of everyone, crowning me in this way. The applause paused briefly, and the banquet moved into the free segment. I stood up, ready to go to the dressing room. As soon as I stepped out of the main hall into the relatively quiet corridor, a figure suddenly blocked my path. It is Gay. He does not know when he detached from his companion and others waiting here. The red veins in his eyes have increased, carrying a kind of reckless all-or-nothing madness. Jinji. His voice was as he tried to reach out to pull me. Let's talk. Just 5 minutes. Number 3 minutes will do. I stepped back, dodging his hand with eyebrows slightly knitted. The tone pure estrangement and courtesy. Mr. Gu, is there something you need? Mr. Gu. Gay seemed pierced by the address, wincing in pain as he looked at me. Jinga, don't call me that. I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I see you. I see your plan. I see that you're living well now. I regret it. Jinga, I regret it every day. That Lin Wanwan. She deceived me. The child might not be mine at all. I've already been doing the paternity test with her. There are no obstacles between us anymore. Won't you come back? I promise I'll treat you well in the future. Better than that Lu Chenjo treats you. His words were rambling, urgently expressing remorse and sincerity, as if he turned back. I should feel grateful and return to his side. I looked at his face, full of pain and supplication, and suddenly felt it was extremely ridiculous. What he regretted wasn't me as a person, but the loss of a possession that once belonged to him, and now has become so dazzling, and belongs to an even stronger man. I smiled softly, a smile that carried no warmth, only a faint pity and complete estrangement. Gay, you seem to have gotten a few things wrong. I watched his suddenly stiffened expression and slowly said, first, whether I'm doing well has nothing to do with you, and it's not something you can judge or redeem. Second, how you and Lin Wan are doing is your business. I have no interest whatsoever. Third, and most importantly, I paused, looked up, and met his gaze with clarity and resolve. My husband is Lu Qingzhou. He is right here in my heart, by my side. Please do not say these things that cause misunderstandings and discomfort. Excuse me. After finishing speaking, I gave a slight nod, bypassed him, and walked straight ahead. The sound of high heels striking the marble floor was crisp and decisive with no trace of hesitation. Jingi Shinjing Hage growls behind me with a despairing tremor. Don't go. You can't treat me like this. We've had 3 years of marriage. I did not look. Back at the end of the hallway, Lu Chenjo had been waiting there for who knows how long, his posture calm as he extended his hand to me. I slipped my hand into his palm and warmth instantly enveloped me. Gay stood frozen in place, watching us walk away hand in hand, our backs harmoniously matched, as if he were the most redundant, the most ridiculous outsider. The sound of the auctioneer congratulating Mr. and Mrs. Lu just now seemed to echo in his ears along with the faint murmurs of the people around. That's Mrs. Lu. She's so elegant. Did Gay want to go up and chat with her just now? He should look at his current situation. I heard his company is in trouble, and things are a mess at home. He clenched his fists suddenly, his nails biting deeply into his palms. Yet he could feel no pain. There was only one cold shame that would completely drown him. The shame of falling from the clouds into mud, witnessed and ridiculed by everyone. He originally came here hoping to seize an opportunity and reverse the slump, but he witnessed firsthand how the woman he abandoned stood at a height he could never reach, how she was cherished by another man as precious as a jewel, while he himself became a joke for not even being qualified to approach. The charity gala's light seemed to still flicker before his eyes, but after that night, the world for Goose had completely changed color. No longer the glittering display of drinking and banqueting, but an ever-pressing brink of despair from the second day of the banquet. Bad news, as if prearranged, fell one after another onto Goose. The major client, Yonkin Construction, an 8-year partner that accounted for nearly a third of the company's annual profit, suddenly terminated all downstream orders for the second half of the year under the pretext of strategic adjustment. Gay personally called the other party's president, who stammered and finally blurted out, "President Gu, it's not that we're untrustworthy brothers. It's, you all have offended someone you shouldn't have offended. The prices and conditions offered by the other side are simply something we can't refuse. In the future, if there's another opportunity, maybe we can cooperate again. People I shouldn't offend." Gay gripped the phone, knuckles whitening. Lu Chenzhou's cold face flashed through his mind in an instant. Immediately afterward, the company was vigorously pushing forward the core site development project in the Eastern City's Eastern New District core plot, nearly risking a large portion of its liquidity. But the final approval stage hit a snag. The planning department issued more than a dozen nearly stringent modification opinions, requiring rectifications within a deadline. Otherwise, retendering would be pursued. The previously agreed bank financing package also suddenly suspended disbursement, citing changes in risk assessment. The cash chain tightened to the limit in an instant. The CFO ran to his office 8 times in a day, a sweat across his forehead. President, next month's project payments, material costs, and employees' wages and bonuses. There's only enough money in the account to last at most 3 weeks if the loans don't come through, or if Yong Chang's final payment can't be settled on time. When it rains, it pours. On the 3rd day, as soon as the stock market opened, the shares of the Gu Group began to plummet without warning, plunging all the way and triggering the circuit breaker in less than half an hour. Market rumors swirled. Some said Gu Group was under investigation for alleged irregular operations. Others claimed a core project had failed. And even more outrageous rumors said Gu's personal life was in turmoil, affecting the company's reputation. Goose sat in the office, staring at the blinding green numbers on the screen and the mess of the trading floor. Eyes reddened like a beast dying in a cage. He smashed everything within reach, roared for the PR department to suppress the news and for the securities department to trace who was maliciously shorting. The answer came back quickly, concise and brutal. Multiple international offshore accounts linked in operation methods, professional and ruthless funds, so abundant as to be despairing. The behind-the-scenes figure pointed to a level they could never reach. Lu Chinho Gay squeezed out the name from between his teeth. With bone-deep hatred and a trace of fear, even he didn't want to admit it was him. It must be him, just because he had tried to get close to Shinja at the banquet, just because he had once been Shinja's husband. This man was here to wipe them out completely. He wanted to strike back, but found that his fists didn't even know where to swing. Lu Chenzhou's industrial base was overseas, and the core business seemed to have no intersection with the Gu family. This dimension-reducing blow left him with no qualification to resist. The local networks he had previously cultivated were now ambiguously silent. The calls he dialed, either unanswered or answered with official-sounding but helpless responses. The Gu Empire, once full of vigor and determination, seemed to have its cornerstone ripped away by an invisible hand overnight. teetering on the edge of collapse. And all of this apparently traces back to the woman whom he once discarded as worthless shame, anger, fear, and a hint of absurd remorse. Like poisonous vines winding around his heart, tightening with each breath. He cannot fall. Gupris is everything to him. With no way out, a crazy thought suddenly emerged to find Shinja. Now only she can save Gupri. Save him. Was Lu Qing doing all this just for her? If Shinja would speak up, this idea made him incredibly ashamed. More painful than being killed by someone to bow his head and beg rescue from the very woman he once despised and treated casually. But the cold reality stood before him, and it seemed he had no other choice. He pulled in the last of his private connections and finally found as temporary residence after returning to the country. Not a hotel, but the uni apartment in the top-tier Central District, famed for its tight security and privacy. That was Lu Chenzhou's property. Gay stood guard downstairs at the apartment for 2 whole days. He didn't dare go up. The security guard would not let him through. He could only, like a humble stalker, hide in the car and stare fixedly at the entrance and exit. Finally, on the evening of the 3rd day, he saw that familiar black Maybach drive into the garage. After a while, Shinja stepped out of the apartment building alone. She wore a simple off-white knitted sweater and long pants, holding an eco-friendly bag in her hand, as if she was going to the nearby boutique supermarket to buy something. Lu Chenzhou did not accompany her opportunity. Gay's heart pounded wildly as he immediately pushed open the car door and rushed over. "Jinghai," he shouted, harshly stepping in front of her. Shinja stopped in her tracks, and upon seeing him, there was no surprise on her face, only a pale indifference and aloofness. She even stepped back half a pace, widening the distance. "Mr. Gu, what else do you want to do?" Her voice was calm and even, as if asking a stranger who was of no concern. This title and attitude once again pierced Gu's. He suppressed the humiliation in his heart, striving to make his expression appear sincere in pain. "Jing He, I want to talk to you alone. Just a few minutes. Please." She looked at him quietly, her eyes without hatred, without fluctuation, only a kind of clarity that unsettled Gu's, as if she could see through all his pathetic scheming. She said nothing as if giving tacit consent. Gay spoke urgently, his speed rapid. "Jingha, I know I'm wrong. I really know I'm wrong. The past 3 years I was blind. I wronged you. Whatever you blame me or hate me for is deserved. But Gu Group is my father's lifelong effort. It cannot fall apart. Mr. Lu Chenzhou. Mr. Lu, due to some misunderstandings, is trying to wipe out Gu Group. The bank has halted loans. Clients are leaving. The stock price is plummeting. Jinga, I can't hold on for the sake of our relationship over the past 3 years. Help me. Help. Gu Group. Okay, you go to Mr. Lu and plead for him to show mercy. Spare me. I promise I will never disturb your lives again. I'll stay far away." He almost finished this sentence in a pleading tone. In his life, he had never been so servant-abject. He stared intently at Shinja's face, hoping to see a trace of hesitation, a trace of pity from above. After hearing this, Shinja remained silent for a moment. The evening breeze brushed through her hair, and her profile in the twilight appeared exceptionally calm. Then she spoke slowly, her voice still soft, yet each word clear. "Gay, you seem to have gotten a few things wrong again." Guest's heart sank abruptly. Shinja said, "First, what a sinking ship does is his business decision. I never interfere, nor do I have the right to interfere. Second, whether the Gu family falls as a problem of your management, none of my business, let alone any favor. Third," she raised her eyes, her gaze sharp and unseeing as it settled on his face, filled with urgency and despair. She suddenly smiled faintly, a smile without warmth, only a trace of almost pitying ridicule. "You came to me now, asking me to help you, but think about it over the past 3 years. Every time I needed you, where were you when your mother was making things difficult for me? You stuck by Lin Wanwan. When I was sick with a fever and lying at home alone, you were celebrating Linu Wanwan's birthday. Even finally, when you needed me to concede to Lin Wanwan. Even notifying me of the divorce was done with condescension and orders. Every time she spoke, Gui's face grew paler. The affection you're talking about now. Shinja gently shook her head as if brushing away a speck of dust in my eyes. It is worth nothing. Your predicament is of your own making. It has nothing to do with me, nothing to do with Shinja. Please don't ever appear in front of me again. After speaking, she picked up the bag and walked straight past him. Steady steps, not a moment's hesitation. Shinja, Gay suddenly turned, growling at her back. His voice twisted with despair. Are you really that heartless? Do you want to see me dead? Have you been longing for this day? All along you. She did not turn back, not even pausing her steps. Her silhouette vanished behind the bright glass doors of the apartment building, as resolute as if she had never known him. Gay stood frozen in place, like a sculpture drained of its soul. Dusk closed in, the city's neon flickered to life, and the warm light of this bustling metropolis fell on him, yet only revealed a cold, desolate gray. She couldn't even be bothered to hate him. In her eyes, he really had become nothing at all. This realization, more than Lu Chenzhou's corporate blows, filled him with suffocating despair and icy numbness. At that moment, his phone began to vibrate crazily. It was a call for an urgent company meeting and also a scream-filled call from his mother, cursing him as useless, cursing him for destroying the family business, cursing him for the trouble he had previously caused with Lin Wan. All sounds intertwined into a sharp noise, crashing into his last remnants of sanity. Gay suddenly grabbed his head, crouching down, a trapped animal whine coming from his throat. It's over. Everything is over. And at this moment, in the spacious and bright apartment on the top floor of Yunshur, Shinja put away the purchases and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. The figure curled up downstairs, small like a black dot. Lu Chenzhou stepped out of the study, lightly embracing her from behind, his chin resting on the top of her head. Did he go? HM. Xinjing leaned into his embrace, closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and then exhaled slowly. She cleared the last bit of stagnation related to the past completely. Lucan's house voice was gently yet firm. Relax. He won't have a chance to trouble you again. Shinja softly said him and held the hand that wrapped around her waist outside. The city lights were dazzling. That insignificant darkness was quickly submerged, leaving no trace. Gay has locked himself in his office for a full 2 days already. The heavy curtains are pulled tightly, cutting off all light and also cutting him off from the suffocating world outside. The air is thick with the scent of tobacco and alcohol, paper strewn everywhere. The computer screen dimly lit, displaying the greenish, barely beating stock chart of Gu Group. His phone keeps vibrating, the screen flashing name after name. Mother, lawyer, chief financial officer, a partner on the verge of a break. He hasn't answered any of them. He's like a beast mortally wounded, hiding in a cave to lick his wounds, with only the last bit of strength left to await the final verdict. In the most conspicuous spot on his desk lies a manila file bag, seal intact. It was personally delivered by his private lawyer this morning. When laid down, the lawyer's eyes were filled with complicated pity and a trace of unnoticeable estrangement. Paternity test report. Gay stared intently at the file bag, his eyes hollow. He longed to tear it open immediately to get a definite answer, yet feared what might be inside. These thin few pages would not only determine a child's lineage, but also decide his last remaining dignity in his crumbling world, whether it would completely shatter. He recalled Lin Wanwan's face at the maternity center, tearful yet earnest, and recalled the mother's countless acts of tenderness toward that child. And he remembered that he himself had once felt a fleeting tenderness of becoming a father before that wrinkled little face. If all of that had been a lie from the very beginning. Gay emitted a short, hoarse laugh, suddenly grabbing the file bag and tearing it open violently. The extract report. He flipped straight to the last page, his gaze skimming over the complex gene locus comparison data. Fixation locked on the final conclusion column. DNA analysis has ruled out a biological father-son relationship between Gu's male and sample A baby. The father-son relationship has been ruled out. In just a single line, it felt like a red-hot branding iron burning into his retina, searing into the depths of his brain. Ha 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 ha. Gay first let out a low chuckle, his shoulders heaving. Then the laughter grew louder, more delirious, and finally devolved into a hysterical, pain-filled, mocking scream. Ha ha. Good, good. Lin Wan. Good. My son. Ha ha. He laughed so hard that tears burst from his eyes, his hand gripping the report paper, trembling violently. The paper crumpled into a mess. So that's it. So that's it. Gay. From beginning to end. You've always been a huge joke. He drove away his wife for a love child. He for a woman full of lies. Turned the Gu family into a smoky, unstable mess. And because of this love child, he had become a crawling, and in Lu Chenzhou's eyes that must be crushed, all the anger, shame, furious deception, and a deeper hatred for one's own blind eyes and heartlessness erupted. At this moment, he suddenly tore the report to shreds and flung it into the air. The scraps of paper scattered down like a dirty snowflake that commemorated his stupid past. At this moment, the phone he had thrown in the corner in silence suddenly lit up crazily, not with calls, but with various news pushes and social media alerts, flooding the screen like a virus. Gus, panting, his eyes red, glanced over in just one glance. The blood in his whole body seemed to freeze instantly. Boom. Young Master G of the Gu group, suspected of being cuckolded. Paternity test revealed. The son is not biologically related. Shocking gossip. The luxury heir's discarded wife makes a comeback. Has the ex-husband become the scapegoat? Gay Lin and Wan's true love overturned on the scene. The biological father of the child remains a mystery. Gu Group's stock price may hit the daily limit again. White Knight Gay speaks out. Former aristocratic son, now a laughingstock broadcast online. Each title more sensational than the last, more vicious than the previous. The accompanying image is clearly the photo of the key conclusion, paid from the report that he just tore up. There are even high-definition surveillance screenshots leaked from somewhere showing Lin Wan pregnant at the East City Hotel entrance, hugging a mysterious man, and the fleeting side profile of him at the charity dinner where he looked pitiful and pleading. Who leaked it? A lawyer. A hospital or Lu Chenzhou's head went boom. The last threat of reason snapped. He lunged forward, grabbing his phone, his fingers trembling as he clicked open the hottest post. A blended headline from finance and entertainment. The comments section has long since exploded. Thousands of new comments flood in every minute. Netsoon said, "Oh my goodness, the TV series wouldn't dare to portray it this way. Didn't the press releases say that Mr. Gu and that Miss Lin are truly in love, undefeatable, and have conquered the feudal family? So, it's truly the green hat unbeatable." Netsem said, "This is hilarious. That old lady from the Gu family was so arrogant before going around saying the original wife's daughter-in-law was bad, praising how sensible and thoughtful this younger one is at having a son. Now, does it still hurt to show your face the grandson isn't even theirs hahanizin?" said, "Sad, am I the only one who cares about the former Mrs. Gu the designer Shin, who had a fleeting glance at the banquet after leaving the scoundrel. Both career and love prospered. It's like a real-life version of Neo Hulu Jinga, an uplifting heroine stepping into reality." Netsend said, "Goose has really lost both wife and troops now. The company is doomed. His face is completely gone, and he has raised someone else's child for so long for nothing. But he is not pitiful at all. He deserves it all. How did he treat his ex-wife in the beginning? Karma in this world." Netsani said, "Latest news. Gu family groups building downstairs is crowded with reporters. I heard Gui's mother fainted on the spot and was rushed to the hospital. Lin Wan's apartment over there is also surrounded. Truly the drama of the year. Humiliation, mockery, shot and Frida. Every comment is like a poison whip, ruthlessly lashing at Guzi's already blood-soaked self-esteem through the screen. His vision blurred in circles, his blood surging. a sickly sweetness rising in his throat. Bang! He slammed his phone hard against the wall opposite, and it shattered into 100 pieces instantly. Ah! He let out a howl like a trapped animal, frantically sweeping everything off the desk. The computer, the pen holder, the decorations, it all shattered into 1,000 pieces on the floor. Done. All done. Career, reputation, family, the last shred of face. Everything at this moment was torn apart by the exposed appraisal report and the unrestrained mockery across the whole internet. Trampled in the mud and then spit on a few more times. He didn't know how long he had stayed in the darkness and mess until the office door was slammed open with a loud bang. Not a secretary nor a security guard. It was his mother. Mrs. Gu's appearance is not much better than Gui's. Her hair is disheveled, eyes red and swollen, her power as white as paper, with traces of medication on her expensive suit from the hospital. Obviously, she woke up to the news and charged over without caring about anything. As soon as she walked in and saw the room in a mess and her son looking utterly inhuman, she was first stunned. Then all her emotions transformed into a surging torrent of anger and spite, and she rushed straight at Guz. "Gay, you wretch! Look at the good you've done!" Gumu's sharp voice pierced the air. She took a few steps forward and slapped Guzi hard across the face. Bang! A clear, crisp sound. Guz's head tilted awkwardly to the side from the beating, his face burning hot, yet numb to any reaction. Gumu trembled all over, pointing at him and cursing, her voice fluctuating with agitation and humiliation. "All because of you. I told you to live a good life with Xinjing, but you refused to listen. You insisted on going to find that Lin Wanwan, that shameless vixen. Now it's done. Arga family's face has been ridiculed by you all. Where should I put my aging face? How can I go out and meet people in the future? The whole city, the entire internet is watching Arga family be a joke. Look at us raising a wild child as a treasure." The more she spoke, the angrier she became, pounding her chest and stamping her feet, tears and snot streaming down. "The company is going to collapse. Those snobbish people won't even answer their phones now. It's all you. For that trash, you wrecked the entire family business. How could I have given birth to such a muddled thing as you? Shinja may not be perfect, but at least you married and clean and clear. Now she goes with Luken Jojo and shines. What about us? We have become the laughingstock of the whole world. Are you satisfied? Every one of the mother's scoldings hit Gay at his most painful point. He stood there like a clay statue, letting his mother cry, scold, and strike him motionless. Only in his reined eyes did the last glimmer fade, leaving behind a deathly stillness, ruin, and the growing darkness of madness. Yeah, he had become the biggest joke, and that Shinja, whom he once looked down on, stood tall, enjoying everyone's praise and envy. What right? The hatred, like the most poisonous vine, spread wildly over this ruins. Not only did it hate Lin Wanwan, hate Lichenho, it even vaguely hated the mother who scolded him at this moment, hated all who mocked him, and deepest inside that hatred, unable to vent, twisted and distorted, eventually slowly pointed toward the source that led him to such a fate. Shinj Jinga, if it hadn't been for her, if she had obediently listened at the start, quietly divorced, not hooked up with Lu Chenha, not become so dazzling, would he not have been subjected to such unbearable comparisons? Wouldn't invite Luke Hen, Joe's retaliation? Would none of this have happened? This absurd, unparalleled thought, in his completely unbalanced heart, actually gradually took root, becoming the only distorted pillar that kept him from completely collapsing. Gumu cursed until she was exhausted, then slumped to the ground, whimpering and crying. Gay slowly raised his head and looked at the shattered remnants of the phone on the ground. The dark screen reflected his gruesome, demon-like face. At that moment, his lips moved, silently uttering a few words. Xinjing. Meanwhile, at the other end of the city, the upscale apartment building where Lin Wanwan rents a place was already crowded with reporters eager for a scoop and onlookers drawn by the spectacle. Curses, urging voices, and camera flashes formed a roaring sea of noise, completely engulfing her in endless humiliation and fear. She frantically dialed Gui's number, only to hear the always busy signal that could never be connected. The true storm has only just begun, and Gu's, who sits at the very center of the storm, stripped of all halos, is stepping closer and closer to a deeper abyss of madness. The paternity test scandal swept through the city like a storm, completely pinning Gay and Lin Wan to the pillar of shame. After consecutive daily limits, Gu family stock price has become little better than waste paper. Creditors crowd the company's doors and court summons rain down like snowflakes. Assets under Gui's name are rapidly frozen, and even the villa that once symbolized status and dignity is about to be taken by the bank and auctioned off. Gu's mother, overwhelmed by extreme shame and blows, suffered a stroke and was hospitalized, her half-body immobile. She could only tremble with the still working hand, pointing at Gu's who came to visit, or rather to confirm whether there was still any profit to be squeezed. Her cloudy eyes filled with resentment, yet she couldn't mutter a complete insult. Gay did not go to the hospital. He was like a ghost, hiding in a rented studio apartment in the city's dirty corner, rented with the last bit of cash. The room was narrow and cramped, filled with mold and the rancid stench of takeout trash. He was unkempt, his eye sockets hollow, and his expensive suit long ago wrinkled and stained. He smashed his phone and used only a shabby laptop, engaging in self-punishment, refreshing again and again the endless posts and exposes online about him. Every single comment, every photo of him with Lin Wan, and the once warm group photos with that wild one that now seem incredibly ironic, all strike him like a dull knife, repeatedly cutting into his already rotting nerves in stark contrast to that. There are occasional press releases about the emerging designer Shin and business magnate Lachino, a divine couple. In the photos, Shinja's smile is bright. He rests beside Lachenjo attending various high-end events, his design studio thriving, his name associated with talent, independence, and luck. The brighter they glow, the more it highlights Gu's as a rotting, foul-smelling rat in the gutter. Why the hell? Gay stares at Shinja's happy face on the screen, his eyeballs bloodshot, a hoarse, odd sound escaping his throat. Why the hell did I end up like this? And you all can live so well. Shinja, it's all because of you. It's all because of you. Extreme failure, humiliation, and jealousy, plus the despair of having no way out, finally burn away his last shred of reason. A crazy and dark idea, like poisonous mushrooms, grows and swells in his twisted heart. Grab Shinja. If he can seize her, Liu Chenhao will undoubtedly yield. He will get the money, he will turn the tables, and he will let this pair of dogs taste the bitterness of pain. 2. The moment this thought arose, it could no longer be restrained. He began, like the most insidious, venomous snake, dragging his ruined body, using the last of his money to buy an anonymous SIM card on the black market in a nearly scrapped van. He lurked around the Insure apartment day and night, observing Shinja's comings and goings. He found that Liu Chenha protected her very well. Normally, there are drivers and bodyguards for all her movements, and opportunities for her to go out alone were rare. But he had plenty of patience, or rather madness had given him obsessive persistence. Finally, he waited for an opportunity. An assistant from Shen, Jinga Studio called. Apparently, a batch of urgently needed special fabrics had arrived at the airport cargo area, and she herself had to carry her documents to sign for receipt in person. While Liu Chenho happened to have a very important international conference that day and could not accompany her, Gay watched Shinja get into that car, which was usually driven by a bodyguard, but today had only a driver, and left the apartment alone. His heart pounded violently in his chest, mingling exhilaration with a destructive pleasure. He knew the opportunity had arrived. He drove that broken van, following from a distance, all the way to a relatively secluded airport cargo area. When Shinja's car stopped at a temporary checkpoint and the driver got out to negotiate with the staff, Gay knew he could not wait any longer. He slammed the accelerator down. The dilapidated van roared sharply as it swerved through the road. braking abruptly to barely block the left front of Shin Jinga's car. Both the driver and the staff were taken aback by this sudden turn of events. Before they could react, Goose had already pushed open the car door, clutching a crude spring knife purchased from the black market, his eyes bloodshot as he charged toward the rear seat in a frenzied manner. Shin Jingha, get out of here, he roared, frantically, smashing the car window with the knife handle. Shinja, inside the car, was clearly startled as well, but she did not panic or scream as Gay had imagined. Her face turned pale, yet she quickly moved toward the opposite door while reaching for her bag containing the emergency alarm device prepared by Lachenha for her. The driver reacted, angrily rushing forward to stop. Goose turned around and wildly swung the knife, forcing the driver back, and smashed the window even more violently. Come out, or I'll kill you. Come with me. At that moment, a sudden change occurred. Beside the freight station, a seemingly ordinary warehouse rolling shutter door suddenly slammed up with a whoosh. 3 or 4 black off-road vehicles burst out like crouched predators, instantly surrounding Gay and his battered van. In the center, the doors opened and 7 or 8 men in black combat uniforms, quick as lightning, jumped down. They held no guns, but the aura of ruthless efficiency instantly dominated the scene. Gay hadn't yet understood what was happening when a surge of force tightly twisted the wrist that held his knife, a fierce pain spreading through him, and the knife rang as it hit the ground. He was reversed, his hands bound behind his back, his face pressed hard against the cold, rough car body. Unable to move. You. Who are you? Let me go. I am Gay. He was frightened and furious, struggling futilely and shouting. No one paid him any attention. A leading man stepped quickly to Shinja's car, bowing slightly with respect. Madam, you were startled. Mr. Liu has instructed that in any exceptional situation, we will handle it. Shinja had already stepped out of the car. Her face was still pale, but her eyes had returned to composure. She glanced at Gay, who was pinned down and looked as wretched as a kicked-out dog. The last remnants of fluctuations from the past in her eyes had completely subsided, leaving only cold indifference. I'm fine. Her voice was steady, and she nodded at the leading man. Thank you for your trouble. Handle it as Chenho instructed. Yes, ma'am. Gay, upon hearing this, struggled to lift his head, his bloodshot eyes glaring at Shinjo with disbelief and hatred. You knew all along you schemed against me. Shinja stepped forward a few paces, stopping above him, looking down on him as if he were a bug rolling in mud. She spoke slowly, her voice clearly reaching his ears. Gay, reaching this point today is your own repeated choice. No one is scheming against you. You did it to yourself, leading your life to a dead end. Nonsense. It's you. It's you and Lu Chenho who forced me. Gay roared. If it weren't for you, how could I have become like this? Shinja shook her head softly, even losing the desire to argue with him. She turned around and said to the person in charge, call the police with weapons. Attempted kidnapping and endangering personal safety. The evidence should be quite sufficient. Shinja, how dare you? You can't treat me like this. I'm your husband. We're not divorced yet. Gay roared in despair, making one last struggle. Shinja paused ever so slightly, not turning back, leaving only a cold sentence drifting in the wind. It won't be for long. The sirens grew closer. The police arrived swiftly and in the face of clear evidence provided under Lu Ken-jo's leadership, including videos of Gay lurking and tailing for days, records of purchasing knives on the black market, and the full footage of the attempted violent hijacking just now. Gu's defenses were pale and powerless. He was handcuffed, stuffed into the police car like trash. At the moment he was dragged aboard, he turned his head for one last look. Shinja had already sat back in the car, the window slowly rising to cut off his venomous gaze. And those men in black quickly got into the car and left, leaving only the police in his dilapidated van at the scene, as if the heart-stopping siege that had just occurred had never happened. The cold handcuffs pressed against his skin, the police car roaring away. Gay looked out the rapidly retreating cityscape, gradually receding into the distance, and finally understood completely he had lost, utterly defeated, with no chance of redemption. Once the golden child, the young master of the Gu family group, now a suspect in attempted kidnapping, about to face legal judgment, and the ex-wife he had abandoned on the ruins he himself had built, had become the light that he could never reach. Regret it, hate it, perhaps both. But more than that, there is a cold despair that everything is emptied, falling into boundless darkness. He knew that the era belonging to Gay, along with himself, had already drawn to a complete, dismal end. A few days later, the Gu Group officially filed for bankruptcy liquidation with the court. Major media outlets ran the news in only a small corner of their pages, and the public's attention had long since been drawn to new gossip. Only a few people still remembered that once arrogant Gus Xiao. Now he was behind bars, awaiting a long life behind iron bars. And Xinjia's divorce agreement was finally approved by the court and took effect at the fastest speed. From then on, she and the man named Gay would have no connection in law or in life. In early winter in London, it's rare to have sunlight breaking through the clouds, shining on the Thames, and scattering tiny golden glints. The studio's heating is turned up high. The air is filled with the warm scent unique to freshly cut wool fabric. And there is also a faint aroma of orange blossom essential oil that I've only recently come to like. I sit in front of a wide design desk, holding a soft measuring tape, but my mind isn't fully present. My gaze rests on the open sketchbook. Inside aren't design drafts, but a few casual strokes sketching soft, round, adorable baby silhouettes with scattered words written beside them. Soft, cloud, stars, small hands. Lu Chenjo pushes the door open, not carrying any documents, nor offering a drink. He walks behind me. His arms encircle me from behind. He leans his chin on the top of my head, holding me quietly for a moment. Lu Chenho says, "Jingha, shall we go to the hospital later?" Okay. His voice was very soft, carrying a careful, gentle anticipation I had never heard before, and a trace of barely noticeable tension. I leaned into his arms, feeling his steady, powerful heartbeat intertwined with the fluttery, uneasy tremor in my own chest. I lowered the soft ruler, turned around, and looked up at him. The sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling window, gilding his deep, thoughtful brows and eyes with a warm glow. I nodded slightly, my throat tight, and the words I spoke with a smile. I was just about to tell you as well. Actually, there's no need to go to the hospital. I'm already 8 or 9 parts certain in my heart. A late period. Lately, I've been easily tired and sleepy, unusually sensitive to certain smells, and also that indescribable, faint, wondrous change deep in my body. But I need that definite answer, and I need to face together with him the most beautiful verdict that will soon alter the course of our lives. He questioned a whole string of questions in one breath, his logic unusually in a bit of a mess. The female doctor couldn't help but laugh, patiently answering one by one. I sat beside him watching this usually unflappable man become flustered because of a tiny life just budding, and a warm surge rose from within me, almost ready to drown me in the car on the way home. Lu Chenjo still held my hand tightly, and with the other hand, he carefully, almost reverently placed it gently over my still, flat abdomen. His palm was warm, and the warmth through the fabric conveyed a sense of stability. "Lu Chenhao," said Jinga. "Thank you." His voice was deep and solemn, as if he were making the heaviest vow. I leaned against his shoulder, my nose a little sore, but I wore a smile. "Chenjo, this is our gift." He cleared his throat once, said nothing more, and only held me closer. The carriage fell silent, except for the steady, soft sounds of the ride and our intertwined, blissfully suffocating breaths. The days to come were like soaking in honey. Lu Chenho almost can lead all unnecessary international trips and engagements, compressing and adjusting his work as much as possible. Our home quickly accumulated many pregnancy guides, nutritious recipes, and from who knows where, soothing music and picture books that were said to be extremely good for a pregnant woman's mood. He always notices my subtle needs earlier than I do before I feel a hint of hunger. Warm, nutritious snacks are already prepared when my back aches, His perfectly timed massage lands there. He even began learning infant care knowledge. And in the study, there are a few baby care books that clash with the financial reports he usually reads. As solemn as if he were researching some cross-border merger case. My studio hasn't ceased operations, but the pace has slowed. Lu Chenjo hired an extremely professional assistant who also serves as a health consultant, ensuring I can continue doing what I love without getting exhausted. The design inspiration hasn't dried up. On the contrary, because of this immense joy and anticipation, it has become more abundant and gentle. I instinctively start incorporating more rounded lines, warmer tones, and elements full of vitality into my designs. Pregnant for 3 months, entering a relatively stable period. After a routine ultrasound, we received the baby's first photo, a small image that already had some human shape. Although still blurred, that strange sense of connection brought tears to my eyes in an instant. Lu Chenho carefully held that black and white image, looked at it for a long time, then solemnly stuck it on the head of the bed. That night, he held me in his arms in our future nursery. He had long been personally supervising the renovation, planning where to place the crib, where to set up a play area, where we could look at the stars. And he talked on and on, nagging about many things. The lights were warm, his voice soft. I leaned into his embrace, listening to his steady heartbeat and those future trivial yet beautiful blueprints, feeling that life up to this point was almost unreal in its completeness. I know the last specks of dust from the past need to be swept away completely, not for revenge, but to give our child a truly clear and pristine start. I rested in Lu Chenho's arms and whispered, "Cho, has Gay's sentence been issued?" The hand that had been stroking my hair paused, then resumed its gentleness. He let out in him, his voice level and unshaken, as if talking about an inconsequential old rumor. "He's down. Kidnapping, attempt endangering public safety, plus some connections to economic crime. Multiple offenses, 15 years. He appealed, but the evidence is conclusive. The chance of a new ruling is nearly zero. 15 years enough to turn a spirited young man into a worn, middle-aged one. Also enough for the outside, ever-changing world to utterly forget him." I remained silent for a moment, neither delight nor pity in my heart. Only a thorough calm that nightmare had at last shed its final echo. Lu Chenho lowered his head to look at me, his gaze bright. "Do you want to go see him?" I shake my head and press my face to his chest. "No, I just think we should put a period here. Not for Gay, but for myself, for a coming child." Lu Chenjo understood. He kissed the top of my head and asked no further. A few days later, an anonymous email with no sender information arrived in a monitoring inbox dedicated to family communications in a certain prison. The email content was extremely simple, containing only one photo. In the photo, sunlight sifted through the vines in the glass greenhouse, casting mottled shadows. I wore a comfortable white long dress, sitting with a slight turn, my hands gently folded over a visibly rounded belly, looking down with a mouth curved into a tranquil, blissful smile. Lu Chenjo stood behind me, slightly bent, one hand softly resting on my belly, the other arm around my shoulders. He turned his head to look at me, the indulgence and gentleness in his eyes almost spilling out of the frame on our ring fingers. The plain wedding bands flashed with a subdued yet eternal luster in the sunlight. The photo contains no text, but anyone can tell that it is a couple immersed in the immense happiness of about to become parents. A new, warm, hopeful core moment of the family. The email was checked according to procedure, printed, and then delivered into the recipient's hands inside the high walls of the prison. Time seems to be frozen. Guz wears an inmate uniform with a number, sits on a cold bench, and gazes blankly at the small grayish sky beyond the iron bars. 15 years of sentence, like an invisible mountain, has crushed all vitality in him. The former swagger, arrogance, discontent, and madness have been worn away day after day by dullness, humiliation, and despair, leaving only a numb shell. The prison guard walks over, throws a printed sheet onto the table in front of him, and says in a matter-of-fact tone, "Guzi, your letter." Gate reluctantly moved his eyeballs, glancing at the paper. Who would write to him? His mother. Since her stroke, she had been taken away by a distant relative, and there had been no word since. Lin Wanwan, that woman who ruined everything for him, likely long ago, had somewhere unknown. He listlessly picked up that sheet of paper. The moment his eyes touched the photo, his whole body seemed struck by a high-voltage current. Stiff, trembling, his pupils suddenly shrank to the size of needles. The person in the photo, Ishin Jinga and Luchin Ho, his gaze fixed on the obvious rise of her belly, on the blissful smile of motherly radiance that he had never seen before, nor could have imagined, and on Lichenho's posture full of possessiveness and protectiveness. A salty, sweet surge rushed up his throat without warning, and Goose suddenly coughed out a mouthful of blood, specks dotting the printed paper, spreading into a dazzling red. His vision darkened, his ears hummed, and his heart felt as if an invisible hand had squeezed and crushed it hard. The child, her and Lu Chenho's child, they were so happy, so perfect. And what about him? Trapped in prison, shunned by everyone, penniless, like a dirty joke. Ha ha! A strange, wheezing sound rattled his throat. He wanted to cry, but tears wouldn't come. He wanted to laugh, but his face twisted. Extreme jealousy, regret, despair, and the last sliver of self-deception, crushed by this photograph, turned into the most bitter juice, corroding a few remnants of his soul. The blood-stained sheet of printed paper slipped from his trembling hands and floated to the ground. On the photo, Shinja's smile, reflected by the bloodstains, looked especially glaring, like a red-hot dagger stabbing through his already scarred heart, and then burning to ashes last sense of purpose for existence. He suddenly curled up, forced his hands to clasp his head, letting out a moan so restrained it was more pitiful than a wail, his entire body trembling like the last dying leaf in autumn wind. Thoroughly finished. Meanwhile, at home in London, I was leaning against Lichenho, flipping through the latest, clearer 4D ultrasound photos of the baby with him. The little one seemed lively, moving its tiny hands. Lichenho pointed at a blurry contour on the screen, his tone softer than ever. "Look, Jinga, this is the baby's nose. It seems like yours." I leaned in to look, my heart swelling full and warm with no trace of gloom left. The sunshine outside the window is just right, warm and inviting. The shadows of the past have long been driven away by this dazzling light, leaving no trace behind. Our future is only each other, and this most precious gift bestowed by heaven. 5 years is enough to change a lot of things. For example, this house in London with a small garden from the carefully arranged new home it once was has become a paradise filled with traces of life and of laughter. In the corner of the garden, there is a small, colorful plastic slide in a swing and on the nearby soil. A few sunflower seedlings are tentatively planted, an endeavor personally overseen by Lunian's child, for example. My design studio has grown from a solitary workstation to an independent brand with outstanding team of designers, Shin's Whisper, which is well regarded in the industry. We focus on blending Eastern serene aesthetics with modern, comfortable fabrics. Not only did we establish a foothold in London, but we also hold a place in buyer shops in Paris and Milan. As for me, after giving birth to Nyanha, inspiration seemed to enter a new phase. My designs became warmer and more powerful, and last year, I even won a fairly prestigious award for emerging designers. And for example, the small person beside me, Mom, look, a butterfly." The bright, childish voice rang out in the garden, full of excitement. I set down the garden scissors in my hand and turned to look. My Nyanha, wearing the little ditzy floral overalls I made for her with a head of soft, slightly curly black hair, was tiptoeing and pointing at a cluster of blooming lavender not far away. Her small face flushed with excitement. A white cabbage butterfly was resting on the purple flower spikes, its wings fluttering slightly. Nanhi nodded vigorously in a childish voice, but very earnest. I like it. Dad, why is it white? The book says, butterflies have many colors. Lu Chinho patiently explained. There are many kinds of butterflies. This is just one of them. When Nyan Yen is a little older, Dad will take you to the Natural History Museum where there are specimens of butterflies from all over the world. More than in the garden. Okay. Niani clapped happily, then turned to dive into my arms again. Mommy is going too. Okay, we'll go. I held her soft little body, kissed her face with a milky scent, and my heart softened and sank with tenderness. Such a morning. Calm, warm, filled with small but real happiness. This is my life, my entire world. As for everything that happened in the city across the ocean, that person, those things, they have long been washed away by time, pale to the point that they hardly qualify as nightmares. A few days later, our family of 3 boarded a flight to Switzerland. This time, it wasn't an escape nor work. It was purely a family vacation. Luenjo said, the summers under the Alps are beautiful. The air is fresh, suitable for Nwanian to run around and suitable for me to relax and seek inspiration. First-class space is spacious. Ninho is flying long haul for the first time. At first, very excited, lying against the window, watching the sea of clouds for a long time, asking 1,000 whys. Once the novelty wore off, and after eating a little, she slept in my arms, rubbing her eyes. Lu Chenho adjusted the chair so I could hold her more comfortably and carefully covered us with a blanket. The plane flies steadily in the stratosphere. Outside the window is an endless sea of clouds glowing in glorious golden red under the sun like a burning silent ocean. I gently pat my daughter, my gaze drifting to the window. Somewhat dazed, Len's house seemed to sense something, reaching out to gently hold the hand I laid under the blanket. His hand was warm and dry, carrying a comforting strength. What are you thinking about? He asked softly, his voice in the steady white noise of the engine, sounding especially clear and gentle. I came back to myself, smiled at him, and shook my head. Nothing. It's just that time passes so fast that the pain and struggles I once thought would be unforgettable now feel distant, like someone else's story from another life. When I looked back, Lu Chin looked at me deeply, and in those eyes that could see through everything. At this moment, there was only complete understanding and tolerance. He did not question. He simply held my hand a little tighter. Everything is over now. Jinga, he said softly, a statement as well as a promise. From now on, it will all be good days. I leaned against his shoulder, closed my eyes, and felt his cool, fragrant breath, and my daughter's even breathing. Yes, it's all over. The plane began to descend slowly, piercing through the clouds. The scenery below gradually became clear. Endless, snow-capped mountains, dark green forests, jewel-like lakes, and towns scattered here, and they're like fairy tale building blocks. Just as the plane was about to touch down at Zurich Airport, and the wheels made a slight tremor on the runway, a shattered image that I had almost forgotten flashed into my mind without any warning. Many years ago at the airport again, during descent, I carried a simple bag alone, walked vaguely with the crowd out to the arrivals hall. Outside was unfamiliar, damp, chilly air and a heart full of fear for the future, but forced to endure. At that time, I probably could never have dreamed that one day I would come to this land again with such a completely different state of mind. Beside me was my beloved husband. In my arms was a lovely daughter. The shadows in my heart were gone. Only great expectations for the journey ahead. The plane stopped steadily. The cabin door opened and fresh air with the scent of summer grass and distant snow-capped peaks rushed in. Ninho woke up as well, rubbing her eyes groggy and seeing the foreign scenery outside the window. She was excited again. Dad, Mom, have we arrived? Is this the place with chocolate and cowbells? Lucino laughed and held her over. We're here. Nyan is so smart. This is Switzerland. We followed the crowd off the plane and stepped onto the jet bridge. Lu Chenho held his daughter with one arm and naturally wrapped his other arm around my waist. I held Nyan's small hand. 3 people formed a complete and solid world. We walked out of the arrival hall and the pickup car had been waiting for some time. The driver respectfully opened the car door for us. We sat in the comfortable car, and the vehicle smoothly left the airport, merged into the traffic, and headed toward the direction of the Alps. I took one last look at the airport buildings, fading quickly outside the window. That place which once bore my embarrassment, my pain, and my final decisive farewell, now under the bright sun, is just an ordinary transportation hub, no different from any other airport. The last trace in my heart, a faint residual feeling related to the past, was completely crushed by the wheels turning, scattered with the wind. From now on, the sky is vast and free of entanglements. My future, my happiness, all my love and concerns are here beside me, in the steady silhouette of my husband, and my daughter's curious, wide-eyed smile, in the hands we tightly clasp, in every ordinary yet brilliant day we are about to embark on together. The car drives onto the highway, leaving the city far behind. Ahead, the snow peaks of the Alps shine with sacred light under the blue sky, as if crowning our brand new journey.